The Amazon Kindle Basic, or the Kindle, is one of the staples of the entire electronic book industry. It has changed so drastically in appearance over the decade, but the core mechanics and purpose of the unit has not changed even once, which has led us to this point. This is the 11th generation Kindle Basic. This one in particular comes in Matcha Green. And you might think that it's frivolous to bank the outcome of this review on a color choice, but honestly, after our days of testing, it was make or break. The fact that this is green changes almost the entire dynamic of the e-reader itself, on the outside of course. The Kindle Basic from the 10th gen to the 11th gen went through pretty much just 3 changes, and we'll explain each one. So let's look how they stack up. Both of them have a 6-inch display with 300 ppi and 16 levels of grayscale. The size and dimensions are identical as well, not increasing or decreasing by so much as a millimeter. They have the same weight and they both have 16 gigs on board, with no SD. They have the same battery life as well. The first change comes in the form of a brighter maximum brightness level. The second change is in terms of password authentication via Wi-Fi. They have added WPA3 and OWE security protocols. And finally, the third change is that the 2022 model states that they use 30% to 75% recycled plastics, 90% recycled magnesium, and 100% recycled packaging. The new device, 2024 model, guarantees a 75% recycled plastic minimum, doing away with the 30 to 75 range. So you can see why we're leaning so hard into the color choice, because seemingly it's all this has. But with that, let's dive in to the Kindle Matcha. Looking at the unit itself, it is very gorgeous. I think the color means everything. As we said at the top of the hour, that if this was in just the traditional black, it would just get lost in the shuffle. This one definitely does differentiate itself from the rest of the crowd. You get a nice mirror finished embossed Amazon smile, not the actual logo itself, all the cert stamps down below, and if you've seen the last couple generations of Kindle, they are completely clean on all the sides, except you have the status indicator light, you have a power button, and you have a USB-C at the bottom. Let's go ahead and weigh this and see what we're working with. This should be the exact same as the 2022 model in terms of the weight at 155 grams. They do state that the manufacturing process could alter this because they are using recycled materials, so just keep that in mind. You know, it's funny that all 3 of the changes that we mentioned are things we can't show you. I can't show you that this is more recycled, and I can't show you the password Wi-Fi protocols, and I can't really show you the brightness, because who are you to know whether this is truly brighter than it was before? Especially because when we put these side by side with the previous gen, we can't really tell, but we'll take their word for it. So in terms of the changes, that's basically it. We have airplane mode, Bluetooth, dark mode, sync, and all settings. Dark mode inverts all of the colors throughout the entire device. It is not just in books, it is not in certain menus, it is device wide. It looks absolutely phenomenal. It works as fast in dark mode as it does in regular light mode, so don't worry about that. There's not going to be any trick to getting a quicker refresh with either one. And if you're a first time e-reader kind of getting into the game, you should note that Amazon and Kobo and Barnes & Noble, for example, are some of the units that don't have any speed modes. So if you're asking how to make this quicker than it is, you will never be able to make it any quicker. The home screen is as follows. It is your library, which is right here, and the rest is basically just ads and everything else. So you have Discover Books, which is just the store recommended for you. It's more of the store, and you can swipe up and down to scroll all the way to the bottom. So the things that belong to you are actually very small. For example, if you look at the library, that's yours right there. That's it. That goes to the store, that is the store, and the rest is the store. So the only thing that belongs to you is your little library right there and the thing that you are reading. If you go to library on the bottom right corner, it's going to take you to your list of things, and this is going to be everything you've downloaded or side-loaded. As you can see here, we have some side-loaded Adobe PDF documents, and we'll show you that in a little bit. And you can just click on something, whether it's a sample, whether it's something you've downloaded from years ago. As you can see here, we have some of the very old 2012 documents still here from our older days of doing reviews 14, 16 years ago. So keep in mind that when you have an Amazon, the beauty of it is that even if you have an Onion from 2013, it's gonna be there. And that's one of the benefits of the Amazon ecosystem, is that everything's there. If we go over to the settings, we get a bunch of settings here. We did a quick comparison between the last gen and this gen. Couldn't find anything really different between the two in terms of what is here. You have all your toggles for power saver, whisper sync, factory default, factory reset, etc. You can check for updates in there as well. You can go to home and library. This has some library tab and reading options. Reading options is going to be refresh and vocabulary builder. You can refresh the page, every single page if you'd like, although honestly doesn't really need to, because it kind of dictates when it needs to refresh and when it needs to clean things up. But it's a pretty clear screen, as we've seen in our testing, so it's not critical that you have it refresh all the time. You're not watching videos, you're not doing note taking, you're not erasing things with a Wacom stylus and you need the lines to go away. Honestly, you don't really need that. Now, you do have Bluetooth on here. You can connect audio and take advantage of TTS or audiobooks themselves, as the store experience has a plentiful amount of audiobooks, which we're going to get into right now. The store experience has a toggle between Kindle and Audible, which is quite nice. I really like that they have this toggle because it jumps between the two stores at a moment's notice. So if you wanted to go and get some audiobooks, mystery and thriller for example, you go ahead and click on that, scroll up and down, find something you like, click on it, and you can pre-order it, sign up for Prime, do a sample. There's lots of different things that you can do with it, and unfortunately, yes, they're always trying to sell you something, so they have these little tiny rebills here. It says $14.95 a month in a really small font, so just be sure you know what you're clicking when you're clicking it. But it is nice that they have both an Audible store and a Kindle store that parallel each other. And depending on the books that you're going to read, they might even give you recommendations when you have a book here, for example, and you click on this and it might say there's an audiobook right there with an audible narration, so you can jump between the two whenever you like. Your purchase decision is pretty straightforward. You can do try a sample, add to list, and everything's on one page. You don't have to navigate to other pages. You can read reviews, you can read feedback, and everything else right here. Goodreads is one of those kind of social media platforms that sneaks under the radar. Goodreads is a social cataloging website, and it's owned by Amazon. So people can create their own groups of book suggestions, polls, blogs, surveys, discussions, all that kind of stuff. You can add friends, you can create profiles. You can see we have a whopping 982 friends. From here you can look at things you want to read, you're currently reading, you can edit your profile, you can change your information, you can see more what other people are talking about, you can read other people's thoughts and whatnot. There's different toggles and stuff like that. It's not a very exciting social media, but for people that are into books, that's not what it's for. It's not supposed to be galleries of pictures and everything. It's centric around books and novels. So it is integrated into the unit, of course. All you would do is press the three dots at the top and click on Goodreads. The web browser has moved away from being experimental. Finally, that's great. But they still have this disclaimer that says it's limited with memory and is intended to use for simple websites. So basically, harking back to it being experimental, they just don't want to call it that anymore. So we're just going to do a little bit of navigating around even our website, our blog, to see what it looks like. So we can tell you from experience that this is definitely the most stable state that an Amazon web browser has ever been in. We've seen terrible experiences at web browsing on these units, but we have the ads showing up, we have the elements showing up, the text looks good. All things considered, it scrolls decently. You have the slider bar on the side, which you can interact with. It all just works, which is kind of refreshing, because even with that disclaimer, it's there to save them in a way, but honestly, it's not doing that poorly of a job. Also, little bit fun fact, they're kind of utilizing a non-user controllable A2 mode. As you see here, there's a lot of artifacting in the background from previous things. They've actually pushed this into a speed mode or A2 mode that you don't really notice that you have no control over. And this is one of the few times you have the ability to really harness A2 mode. However, you can't choose it from the drop down or anything like that. So unfortunately, that's the way it all goes. But the web browser honestly is a complete win. Going back to keyboards, as we said, you get a lot of keyboard options. You get several Englishes, you get complex Chinese, you get languages from all over the world, and you can click on them, download them, choose them, and you can toggle between them. So if you're asking, can you put Arabic characters or Portuguese characters, you definitely can. It hits all the top languages in the world. Personally, one of the most underrated features of Amazon Kindles is the manga experience, and coincidentally, exactly 7 years ago on October 19th, this very day, Amazon unveiled the Kindle Manga model, which was a Japanese exclusive 32 gigs that introduced this, the rapid page turn engine. You can see if you scroll your finger, you can actually choose how fast you want it to burst through the piece of media, and in the same stroke you can move over here and move forward. This rapid page turn engine was utilized and pulled from the manga model and used on subsequent models worldwide. This is no longer exclusive to Japan only. It is quite interesting, and I must say this is very quick, the way it changes pages like that. It is lightning fast. You have the ability to pinch and zoom. It renders very quickly. You can pinch and zoom out. You can't double tap to get out, unfortunately. However, you do have a little mini map on the bottom corner you can see right there that gives you a little bit of an indicator as to where you are on the page. Honestly, this is a very good unit for manga. It's also very indicative of grocery store and convenience store manga in Japan, as they are traditionally very handheld and small. They're not like the big comic book shop North American graphic novels. These things are pretty much around this size. The contrast is fantastic. It doesn't push itself into an A2 mode like the web browser does, so you get no artifacting and no blurriness. It is a very, very good choice for anyone that wants to get into light manga reading, and you can do everything in one hand. Here it is, ebook reading. Back in 2015 to 2017, it kind of mattered that we looked at e-reading and really broke it down and said, okay, this is this and that's that. Honestly, things have stabilized to a degree where it's just everything is good. And that's not a cop-out, but if you look at it, there's no more previous artifacting on the screen anymore. You turn a page, it does it, and it's all cleared, and it's all fresh. And it does it almost seamlessly without a black screen flash refresh. So we're at the point that e-paper is stabilizing to a point where it's so clear and crisp and viewable at virtually any angle, even the extreme 4 or 5 degrees. Look at that. No other device can do that. Our LCDs, LCDs, LEDs, they just can't really achieve that without any hindrance. That viewing angle, this level of refracting the light and breaking it down and shining in its studio lights and still being able to see what's going on, because if you do that with a cell phone, all you get are just whatever's in the room. So with that degree, there's nothing really wrong with the e-reading experience. However, here's something that is oh so right, and something that I have found personally to be a lot better than the 2022 model, although isn't as advertised. The highlight. It's never been that quick in the past. That is so fast that I cannot think of another Kindle that has been able to do that. Paperwhite's sure, but when I say Kindle, that's the name for the basic. This part of this lineup, this is the 11th gen Kindle, the basic. And if you long press and scroll down and scroll up and scroll down and up and down, that is the fastest it has ever been, and it is very nice that that might have been something they were working on. Other than that, it's really not going to be a night and day difference between what you're going to experience. If you go to the AA button, you can click on font, you can click on layout, you can click on more. More gives you a bunch of things right here with word-wise, highlight, book mentions, show the clock while reading, all that kind of stuff. You can change the orientation. You can change the margins. It doesn't have a gyroscope or an accelerometer, so anytime you do want to change the orientation from landscape to portrait, you're going to have to do that yourself, and it only changes 90. It won't change 270. You can't go the other way. And if you go to font, of course, you can embolden, you can change the size, and you can change the font styles. We'll go to the biggest possible font and the biggest possible thing here, so that's what it's going to look like. Now let's just take a moment to appreciate how white that is. This latest line of Kindles has never been better looking in the world of ebook readers, and I would argue that this one's even better than the Paperwhite because it has less hindrances in front. It's a sunken screen. There's no screen protector. There's no Wacom layer. That's it. Here it is. This is an incredibly gorgeous appearance for anyone that wants to read. You don't have to be reading outside to appreciate this. You don't have to be comparing it to an LCD, comparing it to your cell phone. Just look how good that looks. It has never looked better in this latest line. Disclaimer, don't buy this for PDFs, but if you had to, it can work. You can sideload it in, you can load it via send to Kindle on your phone. It's really quite easy and accessible to do that. And honestly, it's pretty quick. And remember, the Paperwhite, as far up as the Paperwhite 3, had RAM issues when handling PDFs, so that a basic can do it and do it this well is honestly pretty nice. So let's not completely discount it right away. There's really nothing here in terms of wow factor. We can go to the text option and we can change some light contrasts and stuff like that. However, Amazon does do one thing very well, that even in side-loaded content, even in sent to Kindle, even in PDFs that you download from all over the world, you can do this. Long press, highlight, 3 dots, translate, and you break down the barrier of essentially anything. I can take this English PDF that maybe I speak and read Arabic, I can't understand what the English characters mean, I can change it to Arabic and it works in seconds. In seconds. And it does it, I don't know, but it looks like it's doing it accurately, except for a few leftover characters. But I'm assuming 80 to 90% of the point can be brought across based off the accuracy of your highlight. But honestly, that it has these little tiny things, which aren't exclusive to this one, it has been on the past couple generations, but it is nice to see that if you had to use a PDF, you can, and it does it adequately. Matcha green. Is it enough to warrant a generational gap? No, it is not. We've seen this in the past, manufacturers trying to fill time in between generational releases by releasing new color variants, like Amazon themselves with various white editions and color choices in the past. But in this case, the difference between Gen 10 and Gen 11, unless you actually dig and look for the changes themselves, you would never notice them. They're all things buried in the specification lists and the molecular structure of the plastic compositions themselves. So the average person looking at the 2022 versus the 2024, they are purely and undeniably the same thing. However, the e-reader itself is still good. This can't be contested. Despite what generation this is, it's a capable, fast, ridiculously good-looking e-reader with multiple color choices, recycled materials, and it isn't going to break the bank at only around $100, depending on the market you're buying it from. There's not really any cons because they're not saying this is anything but an ebook reader. They hit the nail on the head. It's just it was the same nail from 2022. Thank you to Amazon for sending us this sample. Thank you to all of our members for sticking with us over the years, and stay tuned for more videos from GoodReader.com.